Hi, well, I got a couple of minutes of actual daylight during a relentlessly dark Washington winter. I wanted to do a review while it was fresh in my head because I had a little impulse issue over Christmas. I wasn't intending to buy anything, I swear. I was idly looking for something to replace that handmade swords, semi-wakizashi, semi-ninja toe that I gave that really bad review to. And one of the sites that I went to check out was Ryujin Sword over at their page on Sword Buyer's Guide, because they have that tool for custom making katana, including wakizashi, and it's a really good value. But I'd never actually had a custom sword from them. I always got. They also have on that page what they call their off-the-shelf category, and that's actually where I've gotten my previous Ryujins for, and I've been mostly very pleased with them, especially for the money. The first one I reviewed was their Type 98 Shingunto. That's on that off-the-shelf page. I really like that sword, especially for the money, and also their Hatamoto series, Katana or Shinobi Katana. Really love this sword, especially for the money. A fantastic value. Now, unfortunately, both of these have been sold out on that page for months now, which is sad, but at least they haven't taken them off the page, so hopefully they'll come back. That would be wonderful, because I highly recommend them. And they're getting really hard to find. People are asking me where to find them, and I'm like, I don't know. They're getting rare. Now, I did a review on another Hatamoto series, full-size 1060 katana, and I had a couple of problems with that one. But I want to qualify that review by saying I did not buy that sword directly from the Ryujin site, or Sword Buyer's Guide. I got it from a third party. And from the oil staining on the blade, it looked like it had been sitting in the warehouse for quite a long time. And I've noticed with certain Chinese manufacturers that even within a couple of years, there's an improvement in quality, not in all cases, but in some cases. And since most of the problems I had with that one were the Suka, it definitely didn't match any of the other products I've seen from them in terms of being really bulky. And of course, I mentioned it was completely split when I received it. Now, I've since repaired it, and it's fine. It's a beast of a cutter. I like it just fine, but it's it's kind of sad to have to fix a sword out of a box. Not that I'm not used to fixing Sukas on a regular basis. It's one of the parts I expect to wear out and potentially fail with use and abuse. But yeah, new sword. I don't know. Kind of made me a little wary, but I was willing to roll the dice again, and I'm kind of glad I did. Now, I went ahead and checked out their off-the-shelf page. And right before Christmas, I was surprised to discover that they had listed what they called some limited editions for really good deals. They had taken swords from their custom tool and pre-assembled a bunch in unique orientations, and they were offering them at a really good value. The first one to pop up about 3-4 days before Christmas was an all-white Musashi katana, which made me really wary, because I don't even like wearing white shirts, because I know they're not going to stay that way very long. I'm just not that skilled at keeping things clean in my daily life. So yeah, but it was like half price, so that was tempting. So I slept on it, and I came back, and I'm glad I did, because what they had as their limited edition for the day right before Christmas, they called the Kuro Kensei, the Black Sword Saint. Sword Saint being an honorific title for Miyamoto Musashi. So it has that classic Miyamoto Musashi double lobe iron guard on it. And something they don't usually offer as an option in that customization tool, Black Same. And a really good price. Talk about that in a second. Now, everything about this sword has all of the good points of that Kokatana review, starting with the Suka. It has that same kind of thin, nicely tapered in the middle, waisted Suka. It's got the same Fuchikashira, which is a standard option on their custom tool. So you've got this ferrous casting that's been painted, but it's pretty well done with a yin-yang on there, and then the Fuchi matches it with kind of a sunrise pattern, I guess they call it. It's got the really basic brass Vajra Manuki, the Buddhist sword there, and then the wrapping is synthetic, but it's tight, and it's pretty well done, and black on black like this, it's kind of hard to tell uneven diamonds, so it looks good, and it feels great. and everything's nice and tight. Nothing's cracked. You know, everything's put together pretty well. The Tsuba, though, is really nice. This is something I tend to see on higher-end Musashi-style sword offerings. And I'll post a picture of the guard that was on the Musashi sword that I bought from their silver series. That I was kind of disappointed with the guard because it was a really thin, cheap-looking, flat stamped casting that was just painted. I mean, it served its function, but I was not pleased with it and have since replaced it. This one is a really nice iron looking. It doesn't look painted at all. It looks like it's actually iron. Beveled, rounded casting. There's no seams or sharp edges or anything. Feels really great. Looks great. So really pleased with that. The saya is absolutely nothing to say anything about. It's a basic black piano lacquered generic offering. It's got the little brass sheet to dome and the basic cotton sageo. Nothing fancy whatsoever. It's tight at the habaki. I mean, it holds the sword okay, but this is designed to fit all sorts of different blades. It's a very generic option, but it functions. So, for the money, it's fine. I don't have a fetish for fantastic saya like some other people do. As long as it does its job and holds the sword, I expect to beat the hell out of a saya and have to refinish it myself many times in its service life. So, yeah, as long as it's functional and in one piece and works, it's good, and I can draw from it and all that good stuff. The habaki it's brass, has a pretty nice texture to it. So that's a nice thing. The blade, though, T10 differentially hardened. Now, the site was a little vague on whether or not this had a bohi. The pictures showed a bohi, but the specs said no bohi. And I was kind of rolling the dice, and frankly, wasn't terribly concerned either way, but it came with a bohi, and that's cool. Now, this one, just like their other custom series, the bohi starts above the habaki, so it's up to you whether you think that's attractive or not. Now, this reminds me a lot of the blade that's on my Murasame Type 95 NCO Gunto. It's almost identical, except it's about a half an inch longer. It's about a 28-inch blade. Very sharp, very well done. The Hamon is very nice, except, and I'm going to have a hell of a time showing you this, but let's see what I can do with my terrible, terrible lighting today. If you look at the first few inches of the blade, there's kind of a partial second Hamon line that parallels the main one. And it's also, there's a little bit of that on the Kisaki, just on one side of the blade. And I've looked online to try to explain what this is. I've certainly seen sloppy Hamons before, but this Hamon is otherwise really well done. And one of the things they would say, it's a sign of sensitive steel in a folded katana, but this isn't a folded katana. It's T10 mono steel. I'm thinking what happened is either as they were scraping the clay off of it, the tool dragged in a weird way, or after they had scraped the clay off, maybe the clay mix wasn't, up to snuff, and it kind of cracked and left a gap that just paralleled the edge for a little bit. So I don't know if I should be worried about that. It seems to be doing just fine. There's no warping or any obvious flaws in it. So if you guys know anything about this, please put it in the comments. I would love to hear more if anybody knows about this or has seen it. But otherwise, the sword's pretty flawless. The weight is 2 pounds and 4 ounces for this one, and the point of balance is at 3 3/8 inch, which is about 1/4 of an inch south from what I would expect, which makes this sword extra light and maneuverable for me. It's very, very lively. It feels great in kata and cutting. And it cuts really well. I took it out and did some cutting, and unfortunately, I had spent the day prior working with some of the blades that I had some trouble with. They were basically still behaving like semi-sharp baseball bats. So my motor memory had been pre-programmed to swing away and kind of overdo it. So when I took this thing out, I unfortunately also started with a fairly soft target that was a lot too close to the ground, and put the blade in the dirt. But it didn't damage it, so that's a good sign. Bad on me, but good sign for the blade. Thank you. Otherwise, it sailed through bottles and cardboard and everything else really, really well. Very nice cutter. Now, since I was cutting cardboard, yeah, no, you're not supposed to cut cardboard. It is abrasive, and yes, it did leave that kind of micro scuffing on the edge plane. Just barely. But it didn't do any damage to the edge or anything else. It just good as new. So I caught this sword at $180. The price actually fluctuated a little bit up and down in that day or two before Christmas, and when I pushed add to cart, it was at $180. And Sword Buyer's Guide offers a flat rate $20 shipping in the United States for up to 2 swords. I didn't buy 2. I wasn't that tempted, but you know, I still consider $20 shipping a pretty good deal, especially since from Southern California, this gets to me in 3 or 4 days. Now, they also had a big old banner on the site that said they were operating under a skeleton crew for about 2-3 weeks over the Christmas break. They're going to be back up to full strength apparently on January 11th. And they did warn me that there would be a delay in shipping, and there was. It was about a week and a half, which worried me. That was very unusual for them. But once they shipped it, it arrived in its box, in its bag, in perfect condition, in 3 days. So no complaints there. You know, they were very upfront about what to expect, and, you know, that's what I got. So another good purchase. I consider this a really good value, and it encourages me to go back to Ryujin swords in the future. Maybe I'll get that Wakizashi. If I do, you'll certainly see it on the page here, so it'll be on the channel. Until then, I hope you found this one interesting and entertaining, and I do hope to see you again.